It's easy to spot the demons in others, but can we recognize them in ourselves? We explore a journey of a father and his son, and the shadow that follows us all. A man and his son, their shadows elongating in the orange dusk, walked their familiar path home. The city's din faded behind them as they encountered a homeless man, his anger spilling out like the trash he hurled at passing cars. The boy, eyes narrowed in disgust, did not hide his feelings.
Do you see yourself as so different from him?
The man asked quietly, a gentle nudge to the boy's conscience.
Yes.
The boy replied, certain.
I'd never act like that. It's ugly the way he is, inside and out.
The man stopped and sat on a nearby bench, gesturing for the boy to do the same.
Let's talk for a minute.
As they sat, the man pointed to a sapling beside the path, its young branches swaying in the wind.
That tree, like you, is growing in a world that's sometimes harsh, sometimes kind. But what matters is what it absorbs, what it allows to shape it.
The boy followed his father's gaze to the sapling.
What does that have to do with the man?
That's what I'm trying to explain.
Leaning forward, his voice low.
The anger, the hate, the hopelessness you see in him, they're seeds, son. Seeds that can be found in all of us. The question is, do we let them take root? What you could be disgusted with is the filth you have ignored within yourself.
The boy looked down, a frown creasing his brow as he considered the metaphor. They resumed walking, the father's strides measured and thoughtful. He broke the silence with a question.
Have you ever felt completely hopeless?
No.
The man's question hung in the air like the leaves rustling above them.
Maybe not really.
The boy admitted, kicking a pebble on the path.
That's just it. If you don't understand your own capacity for despair, how can you judge another's?
I just know I won't.
Even if you felt the same emotions he's experiencing, the same anger and hopelessness. Have you ever thought about it? About how you would combat it once it knocks on your front door?
Only a few times, but never in depth.
Then do not be surprised if you do the same as him, if not worse.
They came upon a clearing, the fading light casting long shadows on the ground. The man spoke again. This time, his voice softer, inviting reflection.
Who do you think the devil really is?
The boy hesitated, then replied with the certainty of a lesson learned by rote.
The one who disobeyed God and swore to lead man to disobey God as well. He makes us sin.
The man crouched, tracing a finger along the earth, drawing a line that ended abruptly.
Not quite. He doesn't make us do anything. We step towards sin on our own. It's only then that he joins us, whispering, guiding us further astray.
Why are we even talking about this?
Throwing his head back with a mix of frustration and confusion. His father's response was not verbal, but physical. He reached out and gently placed his hands on the boy's shoulders, grounding him, urging him to be present in this moment of discomfort.
You need to hear this.
His grip firm, yet not unkind.
Because if you don't listen, if you don't understand, you might find yourself walking a path no different than the man we saw. Lost.
The boy's resistance waned under his father's steady hold.
All right.
He conceded, his voice softer now.
I'm listening.
His father loosened his grip slightly, but maintained contact.
Thank you.
Locking eyes with his son.
This is important. It's about who you choose to be, and the influences you allow to shape you.
As they walked, the man spoke with a deliberate calmness that seemed to make the very air around them still.
When we're born, we are empty vessels. Life, the world, it pours into us, fills us up with its essence. This essence shapes the foundation of our thoughts, our actions, who we become.
The boy looked at his father, nodding slowly, the lesson beginning to weave itself into his understanding.
These thoughts, they're seeds.
Stooping to pick up a fallen acorn and rolling it between his fingers.
Seeds that can grow into actions, into the very essence of our personality. And as we grow older, it's our turn to pour back into the world, to plant these seeds for others.
He released the acorn, letting it join the others on the ground, a symbol of potential amidst the fallen leaves.
But there's a shadow within us.
His voice lowering as the path dipped into a cooler, shaded area.
It's made up of all the things we're told not to do, all the darker urges we're supposed to lock away.
The boy's thoughts flickered back to times when he felt that shadow stir within him, times of anger and envy.
Is that the shadow you're talking about?
His voice barely above a whisper.
Yes.
As they stepped back into the sunlight, the shadows retreating as if on cue.
And when we're gripped by strong emotions, love, lust, hate, anger, envy, excitement, that's when the shadow has a chance to slip out unless we recognize it, understand it.
The boy felt the truth in this, his mind casting back to moments of his own unchecked emotions, the times he'd lashed out.
And because when you are emotional, you become consumed by that emotion. You cannot be aware of what is happening, as if you blacked out, and when told about what happened, you deny it because you tricked yourself into thinking it was never there. That could never be in me, you say to yourself. I'm better than that, you tell yourself. And the devil, he preys on those who are unaware of this shadow, who justify their darker urges instead of facing them. Those who stumble upon their shadow and fear it, they make room for the devil to whisper.
The realization dawned on the boy as the path wound through a copse where the light dappled through the leaves, casting patterns that danced around them. He understood that the shadow within could have been his own reflection. He remembered the heat of anger toward his own kin, a moment that had slipped into the recesses of his memory without introspection. He had never truly confronted the potential within him to lash out in anger, nor had he considered what might trigger such a storm within. It was a disquieting thought, one that made him slow his step and gaze pensively at the ground, tracing the outline of his own shadow as if it were a stranger.
Every step they take is shrouded in self-justification, anger, greed, envy. They cloak these in reasons and righteousness. But in doing so, they unwittingly lay out a welcome for the devil at the first sign of adversity. It's a crossroads moment. They either confront their shadow, learning from it, or they double down on their justifications, now with a creeping awareness of the darkness they harbor.
He stopped, leaning against an ancient tree, its roots twisted like the tangled web of excuses people weave.
When they turn away from this inner revelation, they're turning a blind eye to the devil, already whispering in the chamber of their hearts. And slowly, insidiously, the shadow grows bolder, stronger, until it casts everything good into darkness.
The sun watched a single leaf fall from the tree, spiraling down, a silent testament to the natural order of things.
Lies become their truth. Chaos upends their order. They place themselves at the center of the universe, relegating all else to the periphery, trivial in comparison to their own convictions. These are the people who might never strike with their hands, but their passive violence has far-reaching ripples. Generations suffer for their blindness to their own capacity for wrongdoing.
They resumed walking, the father's hand resting lightly on his son's back, guiding him. As they passed by a brook, the water flowing clear and determined in its course, the father shared a sobering thought.
These souls are many, not leaders but followers, easily swayed to light or shadow. They are the sheep, but there is nothing wrong with being a sheep. Only that without guidance, without the courage to face their deeper selves, they're adrift, and the devil needs only to steer.
The boy's heart pounded, a mix of fear and revelation.
And the ones who love their shadow.
His curiosity piqued. As they continued their journey, the father touched upon a darker path, overarched by thorny brambles.
They don't just acknowledge their shadow, but embrace it wholeheartedly. This person sees their shadow not as a silent passenger to be occasionally heard, but as a constant companion to be celebrated. They delight in the forbidden, the taboo, every no and don't becoming a yes and do.
They reached a clearing, and the father picked a dark berry from a bush, its juice staining his fingers like ink.
To him, the world is his kingdom. He rejects all structure, all moral codes. Rules do not bind him. Hierarchies do not define him. Sin does not concern him, and the divine is but a myth.
As he spoke, the father cast the berry into his mouth, his expression unchanging as he tasted its bitterness.
When his moment of truth came, that encounter with his shadow, it was not with fear or humility, but with exhilaration. The devil didn't need to knock. He was already there, a welcomed guest, ready to stoke the flames of that newfound power. Together, they walk a path not of redemption, but of ruin, pulling others into their wake, leaving a trail of destruction cloaked in the guise of false virtue. The shadow wears human skin, a wolf among the flock, disrupting the shepherd's guidance.
They paused beside an old, twisted tree. The son, following his father's gaze, saw how the barren branches cast long, claw-like shadows on the ground, a visual echoes of the tale his father wove.
He becomes a beacon of darkness, not just lost, but leading others astray, all under the illusion of enlightenment.
Who are the shepherds?
His voice echoing slightly as they passed through a grove of trees, the branches forming a canopy above them. The father slowed his pace, choosing his words with care.
The shepherds are those who face their shadow with open eyes. They encounter it, perhaps in a moment of great turmoil, and instead of turning away, they weave it into the very fabric of their being, for the good of all.
The path opened up into an expansive valley, the sun beaming down on the scattered trees and herds. He picked up a leaf that had fallen, its edges curled inward like a secret.
Some knew of this shadow from the beginning, sensing its stir in the quiet of night. Instead of fear, they met it with a question, a conversation. And the shadow answered, revealing its nature. It was born of rejection, of the things we deny in ourselves. But the shepherds, they listen. They speak of understanding, of channeling this raw energy into a force for change. The anger they feel becomes a drive to right wrongs. The hate, they direct it against true evil. And their desires, they reserve for love that's been promised and sanctified. The shepherds transform their shadow into a tool, not a mere weapon. It does not flood their path with destruction. Rather, it becomes the spear they wield with precision, to protect and to lead.
A bird took flight, hidden beneath the tall grass. Its ascent, both powerful and graceful. The father placed his hand on the boy's shoulder turning him to face a break in the trees where the light streamed through.
And when they meet the devil, it's not as adversaries, for the devil has no sway over those who have embraced their full selves, shadow and all.
In his father's eyes, the boy saw a firm resolve, the kind that had guided him through life's trials with unwavering strength.
The shepherds are not without fault, but they are awake. They see the world and themselves with clarity. When they err, they seek forgiveness. They are the calm within the storm, always looking to the ultimate shepherd for guidance.
As they resumed walking, the boy felt a warmth in his heart, a light that the darkness could not extinguish. The father affirmed, his voice steady,
إنه ليس له سلطان على الذين آمنوا وعلى ربهم يتوكلون إنما سلطانه على الذين يتولونه والذين هم به مشركون.
They began to walk again,
How do I begin to understand this?
his voice carrying a note of urgency as they navigated a particularly rocky stretch of the path. The father pointed to a hawk circling above them.
Be like that hawk, patient, vigilant. Watch over your thoughts as it watches over the fields for its prey. Hide in the stillness and observe. See how your thoughts come to life and lead to actions. If they're dark, counter them with brighter ones. You're the watcher, not the thoughts themselves.
They walked on, and the father gestured to a garden they passed, lush and blooming.
In time, swap the hunt for the harvest. Cultivate your mind like a gardener tends the soil. Nourish the good, prune the bad. And when you savor the fruits of your labor, know that it was by the grace of something greater. Just be patient.
The father repeated, pausing to let the boy absorb the advice,
Yes.
his gaze following a leaf drifting on the breeze.
And watchful, particularly when emotions run high. That's when our true selves are revealed.
The father nodded, a small smile on his lips.
Exactly. When life is calm, it's easy to claim wisdom. When life is peaceful, it's easy to claim love. When life is easy, it's easy to claim strength. But the true test comes in turmoil. That's when you must be most alert.
Like a hunter waiting quietly.
Understanding dawning in his eyes. The father looked back, pride and affirmation in his nod.
Precisely. And remember, even the hunter respects the rhythm of the natural world, just as we must respect the guidance of the divine in ours.
The boy, with a furrow in his brow, posed a question.
But how do we choose our path with the shadow?
The father, understanding the depth of the question, sat down on a fallen log, patting the space next to him for the boy to join.
You're asking about choice, the how, and the why of it.
Yes.
Taking a seat.
If we're shaped by the world from a young age, how much control do we really have over this shadow?
The father picked up a leaf, examining its intricate veins.
Our choices are like these veins, some seen from the start, and some hidden beneath. We may not see them, but they're always a part of us.
He placed the leaf in the boy's hand.
The shadow's unveiling. It's not just about facing the darkness, but about the choices that led us there. Some choices are made in the heart's silent chambers, before we even know they're being made.
The boy looked at the leaf, now seeing it as a network of paths.
So our heart chooses a path even before we're aware?
In a way, yes.
Standing and helping the boy to his feet.
We're born with a compass that points us in a certain direction. The rest of life is learning to read it, to understand where it's leading us.
The boy pondered this, looking up at the vast expanse of sky visible through the clearing.
And that's something only God knows?
That's right.
the father affirmed, beginning to walk again.
Our hearts make their first choice in the quiet before life's noise takes over. We live out that choice, for better or worse.
The boy, a thoughtful look in his eyes,
So, it's like a journey where the destination is chosen early on, but the path we take is up to us?
Exactly. And every step, every turn, shapes the journey's path, though to an end we choose.
Why do our hearts choose what they do?
his voice carrying the weight of his burgeoning curiosity. The father stopped for a moment, looking at the flowing river beside their path. He picked up a smooth stone and held it in his hand, feeling its weight. He mused,
It said, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ.
So, only God truly understands why we choose as we do.
watching the stones skip across the water's surface.
I see you have been listening to your mother's recitations at night.
I try.
The boy blushing.
Our hearts, they're like seeds planted in the earth, some destined to grow into towering trees, others to become flowers that briefly bloom. Our true nature, and the path it chooses, is a mystery that unfolds with time.
The boy pondered this as they resumed walking, the soft crunch of their steps mingling with the whispers of the grass.
So, our free will? It's like a story written with invisible ink?
In a sense,
Pointing to a fork in the path ahead.
we can choose our direction, make our decisions. But the full map of our life, its every twist and turn, isn't for us to see. We have free will, yet within the bounds of a greater design. Just because someone knows our future does not mean they made us take that path.
And when we die?
The boy pressed, his mind wrestling with the concept.
Ah,
Gentle smile on his face.
that is perhaps the purest expression of our will. In our final moments, we choose how we meet our fate. With fear, with peace, with prayer, or defiance.
They crossed a bridge, the sound of the stream below a gentle reminder of life's relentless flow. The boy felt a surge of understanding, of acceptance, like a puzzle piece clicking into place. As they emerged from the tranquil shelter of the trees at the end of the valley, the boy's mother appeared in the distance. She was cradling the newest member of their family, a mere 2 weeks into the world, with his younger brother at her side. The air was rich with the scent of the evening's meal, a savory aroma that hinted at salt and herbs, beckoning them to the comforts of home.
Come on, son.
The father said, with a warm smile that reflected the soft glow of the lights from their house.
It's time to go back to where the heart is.
Yes.
The boy replied, a sense of eagerness in his step.
I can't wait to see what's next.